Welcome to Girl Talk. This is your host, Melissa Ann, and I'm excited to be here with you today. We're talking about five things my therapist taught me. No, I'm not crazy, but yes, I do go see a therapist. It's called self care, it's called self love, it's called being in tune with yourself and knowing when you need to seek someone that is non biased to have a conversation with. So, five things my therapist taught me. The first one we talked about was emotional baggage, that emotional baggage that's inside of you that you're carrying on your back like a backpack. Today, I want to talk about the 80-20 rule. A lot of times we put blame on circumstances, we put blame on people, we put blame on places, we put things in the wrong categories. Sometimes it is childhood trauma, sometimes it's an adult trauma. There are emotional injuries, according to my therapist, that you have each and every day. But you have to reflect on the 80-20 rule. So that's what we're talking about today. 80% may be something else or someone else, persons, places, things, but 20% is you. That's a hard pill to swallow. What is the 20% that you need to work on? I talked about in the last episode that I had so much trauma that my octave of my voice was so high that when I finally found a voice, I used it. And sometimes I used it to my detriment. My voice was so loud that I protected myself. I wouldn't let what I call no one's going to punk me type mentality. And so when someone said something that I felt was out of order, I responded, whether that was email, whether that was verbally, but email was typically my choice from a very young age, being able to put pen to paper and have a discussion with someone that was not always very nice. So, what is that 20% that you have to work on? What's that 20% that you're carrying around? Is it communication style? Is it that you are doing things that are harmful to yourself, thereby destroying relationships that are really crucial to your success? Or is that 20% something that you have to fix via therapy? Like I mentioned in the last episode, that emotional trauma that you're carrying around, that rejection that you're carrying around, that abandonment that you're carrying around, that being treated unfairly or poorly. As a kid, I was picked on quite a bit, and because of the I was never a small person, A, B, my complexion was darker than most. And so that really played a part in how I responded to people. It played a part in how I addressed, not only addressed people, but how I felt about myself. So if I felt like someone was attacking me, I went back to they're attacking me because of the color of my skin. So now I have to protect myself. Do you find yourself in a situation where you're having to protect yourself because of something that happened many, many, many years ago, and it comes back up, it resurfaces because you haven't dealt with it? So what's that 20%? 80% it could be, a mean boss. I talked about that in my last um episode, where I had a really basically an abusive boss, which led me to coming to therapy in the first place. I had a boss that literally said such mean things like, "Why are you talking?" or "You sound like an angry black woman," or, commenting on my hair, "Your hair is poofy," or "You're not on my level." So many different things that were unprovoked that provoked me to dig down in that 20% and come back with a response. That response is always going to be looked at as you are the aggressor, you are the person that's toxic, you are the person that is in the wrong, because that other person who is 80% of the problem is always going to point the finger at you. They're not going to address their issues. And so my therapist had to show me how to de-escalate issues or not respond or how to respond. And some of the things that she taught me was, before responding, stop, right? A simple stop. Think about what you're going to say and then respond. A lot of times individuals want you to respond right on on the dime. You don't have to do that. That is your right. Your right is to stop and then respond, because it allows you to erase the negative emotion that you're going to regurgitate and think about the positive way that you can get your point across. You could get your point across so that that individual doesn't step over boundaries. And we'll talk about the boundary piece that she taught me, but you don't have to say it in a way where you moving your head and rolling your eyes. You don't have to respond in a way where you said, per my email, I said blah 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 blah. There are ways that you can respond. There's coping skills in which you can utilize to respond. I took a pause there because I thought about being a black woman, and a lot of times what we don't realize is that sometimes you're poked intentionally, because you sometimes individuals want to see that woman come out, and so that they could point the finger and say, there she is, she came out. That's that angry black woman that we've been hearing about. And that's when that pause, or when your thought process comes into play. You don't have to respond to every situation. I was a person, admittedly, that had to respond to every situation because in my mind, I didn't want to be punked. And if you said something that was derogatory, like, who asked you to speak, I felt like I needed to respond to that. And sometimes it's just not necessary. Like I mentioned previously, it destroys relationships, it destroys your brand. We'll talk about in episodes later about branding and how branding can either impact you positively or impact you negatively. So, what are some of the things that I had to do in order to understand that 20%? So, A, we had to go all the way back to where I felt feelings of rejection. And so, some of the questions she would ask is, when someone said X to you, how did you feel? Well, I felt angry. Well, why did you feel angry? Well, I felt like I was being rejected. Why did you feel rejected? Because somewhere down the line in my childhood, I was rejected. And so it brought back those emotions. And it's mixed up there in that 20% that we don't necessarily think about. We think about, that person did this to me, and that was unfair, and that's not fair that they did that, and they should be reprimanded as well. Well, it's all in how you respond, right? It's all in how you handle it. And some, people are always saying, well, you should be positive, you should be positive. Well, every situation is not a positive situation. There are situations where you do have to defend yourself, but it's how you defend yourself. You don't have to be anyone's whipping post or anyone's yes woman or yes man. You have the ability to set those boundaries and let individuals know that they've crossed over that boundary. And sometimes no is your boundary. Telling someone, no, you can't talk to me that way. Let's de escalate the situation. Let's think about it from another lens. You can't talk to me as if I'm a child. You can't tell me that I'm, someone who's not on your level. Or what level are we talking about? Right? So there are different ways that you can de-escalate the situation. So you're looking at life from an 80-20 rule. 20% is you. And that 20% is where you have to recognize that it is you. That is always a hard pill to swallow. You want to blame everyone else, right? But when you blame someone else and you're pointing the finger, another finger is pointing back at you. How are you today going to think about what's that 20%? What situations have you been in where you knew that 80% was the person, but 20% was you? How are you going to fix that 20%? What are you going to do in your life? Are you going to go have a conversation with a therapist? Another way that you can do is write a letter to that individual that hurt you, that spoke badly about you. Write a letter to them. You don't have to send the letter. Write everything that you felt and then write a closure statement. You hurt me because you did these things. But I'm not hurt now because here's how I fixed it. So I have to let you go because the more you hold on to it, guess what? The more backpack rocks you have. The 80-20 rule was something that was very significant to me because, I had to realize that although I was in bad situations, I had to realize some of that was me, my mouth. My mouth got me in trouble. I'm clearly a New Yorker, and New Yorkers have mouths. And so sometimes we use them. But I had to bring the octave down a few steps, take a deep breath, stop, and think about what I'm going to say. And guess what else she taught me? Everything doesn't garner a response because everyone is not worth a response. You have to determine how much it's worth responding to someone. Sometimes you just have to walk away. And I admire those people that I watched while I was in battle with myself, just in situations that they may have been in similar situations, but they had the ability to walk away. And I always admired those people. But those people also were lived stress-free lives. So when you're carrying around that 20%, you are full of tense. You're very tense. You're full of stress. You're always on guard. You're looking behind your back. You're looking to see who has the bazooka in the tree that's going to blow you away. But you have to figure out why that person is in the tree waiting for you. Is it you or is it them? 20% of that is you. And so that was a lesson that she taught me that helped me maneuver a lot of my relationships. I'm never going to be 100%. I don't think any of us are going to be 100%. There are situations where something will arise and I'll get upset, but I've learned to take a breath or I've learned to walk away. And that's what you need to learn as an individual if you want to progress, if you want to keep your brand, is simply take a breath. Either take a breath and think about what you're going to say, or simply just walk away. I hope that this episode has been helpful to you. I have some good news. Girl Talk with the Boys will resume in the next few weeks. So I'm very, very, very excited about that. The guys will be back and we'll have some awesome topics, but we will continue those one on one sessions as well. And as always, I see you because I am you.